Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Anita Huberman. I'm President and CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade, also an honorary captain of the Royal Canadian Navy, appointed by Canada's Defence Minister. And I'd just like to remind you to turn off your cell phones to avoid any interruptions in the program. Feel free to social media it out, though, and tag the Surrey Board of Trade, tag our minister, Jagrup Brar, as well. And if you do not want your photo taken, please let the Surrey Board of Trade staff know. We do use photos for both internal and external publications. Everyone, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of our Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tawasin, Kaikhut, Coquitlam, our Inuit, and our Métis peoples. They have a profound connection to the land and waters that surround our great city of Surrey. And of course, June is our National Indigenous Peoples Day. And true economic reconciliation happens when not only are we learning about the history of our Indigenous peoples, but also how we can enact economic partnerships to ensure that we are an opportunity city, an opportunity province for all people. And when it comes to international trade, which is a significant portfolio for the Surrey Board of Trade, we are focused on building those economic actions with our Indigenous peoples, even when it comes to global partnerships. Everyone, you are here today because we are going global. And Surrey is a global city, and that is why our British Columbia Minister of State for Trade is from Surrey, British Columbia, because Surrey is a key economic market for this province and for this nation. And today we are going to be engaging in a dialogue around growing your business or your organization, growing our city through trade. And it is a discussion not only with BC's Minister of State for Trade, but also with other association leaders that are here to support you, that work with not only the Surrey Board of Trade, but the BC government in very strategic ways. So we're going to go through all of that very, very shortly. This event cannot happen, any Board of Trade cannot happen without sponsorship support. So thank you so much to the generous support of the British Columbia Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation. You have to have way more enthusiastic applause for our sponsors because they have committed time and money. Excellent. And our ongoing progress partners of the Surrey Board of Trade are the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, represented by SNF Benefits, the law firm of Fasken, Focus College, Lighthouse Labs, and of course, Western Community College. Now, I just want you to really ensure that you understand that Surrey is an opportunity city, not only domestically, but also internationally. We've been engaging in a bit of a Surrey roadshow. I was in Taiwan in March. I was in Mexico in April, and 2 weeks ago I was in Dublin for Dublin Tech in Ireland. And these have been key strategic areas for us to ensure that we are focused on telling the story of Surrey, all of our economic assets. And I have to tell you that people are excited about Surrey around the world. And we need to engage more. We cannot live, just as a nation unto itself. We need to engage with the world. There are co-location opportunities. There are specific leads for our health and technology district in the life sciences sector that have been built. And of course, it's all about the follow-up when you go on these global trips. But Surrey is on the map, and more needs to happen. And of course, with my role on the City of Surrey's Innovation and Investment Committee, our regional government's Economic Development Council called Invest Vancouver, which is comprised of 21 cities and one First Nation, we are building the brand to ensure that we are looking for national but also international investors to build Surrey, to build British Columbia. And that is what this is all about today. We are not only building our cities, but we are building businesses, even at the smallest business level. Every single business matters to British Columbia, and every single business matters to the Surrey Board of Trade. And that is why our International Trade Center at the Surrey Board of Trade, we have formed 30 different country partnerships, and we will continue to build global business connections for local businesses. We engage in a variety of trade documentation services with those countries that we do not have free trade agreements with. But certainly, we are in Surrey. Never doubt that we are not a part of the global equation. We are definitely part of the global equation. One other thing that I wanted to mention is we're also part of this Cascadia Economic Corridor. We're a border city. And so I'm also part of the organizing committee for the next Cascadia Convention in Whistler in July. And that's the state of California, Oregon, Washington State, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, all of us together with the private sector, government, our Indigenous communities, all coming together to talk about the West Coast from the U.S. and British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, to ensure that we are focused on strategic infrastructure assets and also building business through trade. The U.S. is still one of our largest trading partners for not only British Columbia, but for Canada. And we're going to be leveraging in a week, I think it is, on June 25th, we are going to be opening the Surrey Board of Trade, our second location, called the Surrey Technology and Skills Center, in partnership with our joint venture partner, Western Community College, bridging business and education together, making Surrey a tech destination and a global destination. It is very cool, and you are going to be amazed by the work that we've done and the work to come to ensure that Surrey is that tech destination. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce BC's Minister of State for Trade. He was first elected as an MLA in Surrey in 2004 and served until 2013. He was elected again as the MLA for Surrey Fleetwood in 2017 and 2020. He previously served as a government caucus chair, the chair of the Special Committee to review provisions of the Elections Act, and a member of the Special Committee to appoint the Chief Electoral Officer. While in official opposition, he served as the official opposition spokesperson for small business, healthy living and sports, employment and income assistance, and Solicitor General and public safety. So a very well-rounded service portfolio to his service to our province of British Columbia. And we're going to engage in a bit of a chat on stage, but I want you to give a warm welcome to our very own Minister of State for Trade, Jagrup Brar.
I'm making some comments and then we do the thing.
Please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning, eh? I know. Thank you, Anita, for the introduction. I just want to say my sincere thanks to the Surrey Board of Trade for your exceptional work, particularly to advocate for the business community at all levels. And also, I think your extraordinary work to connect BC businesses with the global community, which we are doing, and that complement the actions of the provincial government. So thank you for doing that. And last but not the least, I'm very pleased to see that you're going to open what we call the Surrey Technology and Skill Center, right? That's a great thing to do because what we are doing in the province of British Columbia is that we are promoting BC-made goods and services, particularly, and our focus remains clean energy, agri-tech, biotech, and your center will be, of course, a huge complement to what we are doing as a province. So thank you very much for doing that. And thanks to all of you for coming today. I know it's early morning, I think, but we will make it a very meaningful day for you today, particularly when it comes to international trade. So are you all ready to go? Okay. So let me begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the territory of the Coast Salish people, especially the Kwantlen, Ketchi, Kwi-Kwantlen, Kekite, Samiamo, and Twasan First Nations. My thanks to the Surrey Board of Trade, for working with the trade team who are here today of our Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development, and Innovation to get the word out. And the word is that the government of British Columbia is here to support you in growing your business globally. Trade is a crucial element in our BC's economy. And let me tell you that we are going through a very difficult time when we talk about the economy, because of high inflation, high interest rates, and of course, global events, which we see ongoing event even after the pandemic. They all have impact on our economy, our international trade, and also our supply chains. The good news is that in BC, we continue to diversify our trade, and our trade has gone up by roughly about 30% since 2017 to 2020-30, and we were able to weather through this difficult time because of the trade and the jobs we created through trade. So our economy remains in BC strong and stable. We have the third lowest unemployment rate in the country, which is 5.6%, lower than the national average, which is about 6.2%. We also have the highest GDP growth since 2017 among all big provinces. That's also a good thing for us to moving forward. And we continue to have the highest credit rating, when it comes to economy, and that makes us, it's helpful to us moving forward. So as BC Minister of Trade for State for Trade, I work alongside the Honourable Brenda Bailey, Minister of Jobs, Economic Development, and Innovation to champion trade relations. I lead the development of new export strategy which broaden our global trading base, creating opportunities to showcase BC's product and services. Our government has been following our industrial blueprint and working collaboratively across all sectors to seize opportunities, attract investment, drive growth, and support BC businesses. The BC government launched what we call the Trade Diversification Strategy, as I said to you earlier, which addresses the need for a diversified trading base for BC, a need highlighted by the impact of pandemic and other global events. Now, when I say this, sometimes, we say what it means. I even, being part of this department, really was struggling to understand when the people say in the supply chain, what is supply chain and how it happens. So if you go to Surrey today, to even a small shop, and if you ask that person from where you actually bring your products, that may have come from 10 different countries. So if there's a war or if there's a COVID and all that, that supply stops, and then it becomes a problem for us. So we saw that during the COVID, we saw serious supply chain challenges for health products, for example, masks. It was very hard to find masks from anywhere, and other food products and all that. So, so after going through COVID-19, we realized that it is always risky to depend on a small number of markets, and we need to diversify our trade into new markets. So under this strategy, we are creating trade and investment opportunity for new markets while expanding in the existing ones, and increasing the number and diversity of exporters in BC. Historically, if we see the trade was something which was accessible to big corporations because they have resources, but small business and medium-sized businesses were not really able to benefit from international trade export activities. But we are now working on to to support small businesses and medium-sized businesses to get into the export activities, which include, for example, indigenous people, women, people of color, LGBTQ, and all those people who are underrepresented in trade right now. Similarly, we are also encouraging, as I said to you, small and medium-sized businesses right now to particularly participate in the international trade. So one way we are increasing BC exporters, which is like people sitting here in this room, is by supporting and expanding export programs. We have programs to support people through our Trade Accelerator Program, which is known as TAP. It's a Trade Accelerator Program known as TAP, and you will have full detail, what you call the information about that from our staff today. A program designed to help small and medium-sized enterprises develop a market entry plan for a new market. So they will help you actually develop that plan in order to achieve their export goals. We also offer another program, it's known as Export Navigator Program, which helps businesses become export ready. These are for new people by providing export advisors who offer free services to BC businesses. Some of our trade experts, our team is sitting right here today, and to provide you more details about these programs, including who to talk to and how to access these programs. We are expanding our connections and showcasing BC's high-quality goods and services through our trade missions to places like European Union, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and the United States, and through a network of trade and investment representative around the globe. So we have about 24 locations in Asia, in Europe, in North America, including recently opened in Vietnam and Taiwan. And currently, we are working very closely with Global Affairs to open our office in Mexico City. It's also important to know that Canada has free trade agreements that covers more than 50 international markets. So we have 15 agreements that actually covers 50 markets globally, where we have the agreement with different nations. And these include the markets of our top trading partners, such as the United States, we already know that, the European Union, which has 27 countries, and Japan and South Korea. Our free trade agreement, when we say that free trade agreement means they can actually lower your cost, because we sometimes eliminate completely the tariff, sometimes it go very, very low. Remove trade barriers, and improve certainty and transparency in other markets. Our team is here to help you understand how they work and what it means for you, for your business, giving you product and services a competitive advantage. So they will explain more about this. So our government is helping businesses grow and become more competitive last year, Premier EB announced what we call the BC Manufacturing Job Fund. It's a new fund. It's called the Manufacturing Job Fund. The purpose of this fund is to help businesses in BC modernize and innovate their manufacturing sites and equipment, thereby boosting productivity and competitiveness in domestic and international markets. I encourage you to look into it, and if your business is eligible, apply for it. It is still open. It's a program of $180 million. It's still open, and it's open until all the funds are consumed. So the applications are still open, and we are accepting the applications. One piece of advice I would like to share is that investors and consumers are becoming more conscious now about ESG factors. It's called ESG factors. Some of you, how many people know about ESG? You know it. That's good. Yeah. So ESG factor is, if you go back in old time, there were two ways the international trade export was working. One was they bring the prices very low and you can sell things. One was bring the quality very high and you can sell things. I said, I gave example to people when I was a national player back home in India. I used to purchase my shoes for basketball from Adidas, because of their quality and all that, although they were probably 5-6 times more costly than the local shoes. So it was quality. So ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. Those three factors moving forward, that will be actually the key for international trade. While many BC businesses already operate in a way that consider their social and the environmental impact. So they are responsible for their social impact and the environmental impact. Businesses now are facing increasing pressure from investors, consumers, and through their supply chains to report on their ESG performance. So what it means, basically, right now, it's not only the product, but people are looking, consumer and investors are looking for how you produce the product. Do you use child labor, for example? That's not acceptable anymore. Do you work hard to bring down the emissions as much as possible to produce that thing? And those are the things now the business has to keep in mind. So that's why BC recently, we are the first province, recently opened what we call the ESG Center of Excellence. So to provide virtual concierge client services that work directly with the business one-on-one and at no cost. So we have now a service in BC to help them navigate their ESG journey. So if you have issues, you can talk to them and provide them with an important economic competitive advantage in the global market. All of these actions together help make BC more resilient and flexible to market trends and changes. This is a brief overview of what British Columbia is doing to boost trade internationally. I cannot emphasize enough how much our economy relies on these trends of our trade and export activities. And I look forward to having a meaningful discussion with all of you this morning. The last thing I want to say to you that BC, or even Canada, but BC, I'm speaking for BC, we are a very diverse province. So we have people from almost every part of the globe. That's a good connection. We have a good people-to-people connection almost anywhere. And when people-to-people connections are there, I know there are business-to-business connection also established at the same time. So we don't have the challenges which other nations, which are not very diversified, particularly culturally, face to go to a new nations. But we don't, because we are very well connected almost every part of the globe. So thank you very much for coming to listen to participate in this, and we will make your day very meaningful. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Minister. I wanted to just start off by asking you, you have been in Surrey. I've known you for, I think, 3 decades. And you've seen how Surrey has grown. We're going to be the largest city in British Columbia. You raised your family here. Just tell me about your perspective about Surrey's future when it comes to the global economy and opportunities for our business.
That's a great question, Anita. We struggle to find the answer for that question every day. But let me tell you that Surrey is a great place. I am, if some people don't know, I am the MLA from Surrey Fleetwood. When I came to this country, actually, I came to Surrey almost now 25 years ago, and my kids are born here. My kids went to school here. My kids are going to university here. They're born here. So Surrey is a place where I live. And I love. Surrey has great potential. Surrey is the fastest growing city in the province, in the country. And of course, Surrey draw a lot of newcomers as well at the same time. So we need to, of course, build, we are behind probably in building infrastructure, whether it's healthcare or public transit or schools or all that kind of stuff. So we are working very hard, to make sure we have the required services, required infrastructure. So that's why we are building a new hospital in Cloverdale. We are building a SkyTrain from Surrey to Langley, and we are building schools. We are building Portola Bridge, and all that kind of stuff. But we need to continue working hard. We need to do more, because if you look at the pace of growth, that's way more faster, way more quick, and certainly it takes time to build infrastructure, way more time than the population can come. And last year, for example, 191,000 people came to BC, right? It's like a new Burnaby came to BC, right? So it takes time to provide services to them. So Surrey, great city, great future. We need to work hard to provide infrastructure and other services.
So, one of the things that I think people don't understand is that Surrey has great trade enabling infrastructure. We have Dubai ports, also known as Fraser Surrey Docks, so we're shipping goods, receiving goods from all over the world. We have, of course, a border. We're on the border of the United States, where we're moving people, moving goods, and the greatest number of manufacturers within British Columbia that are shipping goods to various parts of our globe. So significant trade enabling infrastructure, a significant growing contingent of businesses that are participating in the global economy. But can you tell us about British Columbia's performance in trade and exports comparatively to the rest of the nation, and what you would like to see into the future?
Moving forward, as I said earlier in my comments that we are going through a challenging time. Not us, but I think the entire global community is going through a challenging time. Global inflation, high interest rates, global events such as pandemic and other global events we see right now going on have impact on everything we do, and particularly they have impacted our economy, our supply chain, and our trade as never before. The good news is in BC, because of the policy we put in place, our trade in BC went up from almost 30% from between 17 when we took over to 2023. And that helped us weather through the difficult time, as I said to you earlier, because of all these things which is happening around us. So, our trade went up from $45 billion to anywhere close to $60 billion. When I say trade, by the way, people listening here, I just want to clarify, there are different layers of export when we talk about. We talk about exporting goods, which is BC-made goods, which you can touch, feel. It could be a chair, it could be a table, it could be anything. And then we also export services where people go and help provide the know-how, for different projects, whether it's infrastructure projects and other projects. And so that happens internationally. We also do the same thing within provinces. So today we are only talking about the export of goods to other countries, not within province, and they may touch upon that, but that's what I mean. So our trade, our export has gone up 30%, and that helped us go through this difficult time. Our top trading partners right now are United States and China, and after that, of course, Japan, Korea, and India. Those are the top. We don't stop there, but those are the top. If I would say 90+% of our export goes to these nations. And of course, that's why we are diversifying it to find more new markets to do it. And our top BC-made things, which we export to other countries or these nations, that is energy products, solid wood, and then we have machinery and equipments, and then we have what we call the critical minerals, and then we have paper and pulp products. These are the products we actually, if you look at majority project, we send out. We're doing a very good job. We continue to diversify our trade to new markets to create good jobs for the people of British Columbia, and also develop an economy, as you said, that is clean, that is sustainable in the long run.
When we're talking about strengthening British Columbia's trade opportunities to strengthen our economy, can you talk about the programs that you referenced in your remarks, the support mechanisms for business?
The first and the important thing is that after COVID, we learned, as I said to you earlier, that it's a challenge to depend upon on a small number of markets. So what we have decided to diversify our trade to new markets. At the same time, we are going to continue strengthening the relationship with the existing markets. So we have what we call the trade diversification strategy now. In that strategy, which we prepared, staff sitting here, they work very hard. And we talk to stakeholders, talk to our offices outside, talk to people who are doing export and all that. So we came with a short list of many, many countries, but finally we selected 3 new nations. That is Vietnam, and that is Taiwan and Mexico. I have had the opportunity to open the office in Vietnam last May. And then we also opened what we call the Forestry Innovation and Investment Office. It's called FII, if I'm correct, in Vietnam. That's a separate office. We have also opened office in Taiwan right now, and we are in the process of opening office in Mexico. So now 3 new markets will have our office. And when we have office for the people sitting in this room, those staff members are actually the key for you to help. If you go to that country, would you want to connect with somebody, those are the people at the ground who help you there. And similarly, if you want to bring somebody from other side to this side, those are the people who work with the people to make sure they set up meeting in this province and all that. So we have now 3 new markets. So we continue to diversify that. As per the programs are concerned, I know staff is going to give you more information. 2 programs. The first one is TAP program, Trade Accelerator Program. It's a 6-week program. It's a very detailed program. It provides workshops. It provides mentorship to people. And it prepares people what the market entry plan, just like a business plan to a new market, and particularly where they haven't gone yet. So that's one program. The other program is Trade Accelerator Program. That is, Export Navigator Program. That is more one-to-one, where people are completely new. So our export advisors go there, talk to them, and they help them understand what it is and all that kind of stuff. So those programs, what we have seen in the history, those programs working on still 2017, around that time. So the people who attend those programs, their revenue goes up about 23% in the first year. And their hiring power, they hire more people that goes up about 60%.
I was at your BC office in Taiwan, in Taipei, and I have to say that the trade commissioners are an integral part of any global trip, and that's how we actually developed our 5 solid business leads for Surrey through Venus Chen in your Taipei office. So really appreciated her support. You know, as I mentioned before, you know this, Surrey has the greatest number of manufacturers within British Columbia. We learned during the pandemic that food security was absolutely important. A third of our land base is agricultural, but a strong portion of our manufacturing sector are food processors. And I know the BC government has invested in Surrey related to food processing and food manufacturing. But can you tell us about export opportunities for this sector too?
The good news is, the global community is very interested. We are attracting a lot of people when it comes to farm produce, whether it's farm produce, wine, and fish and seafood, because of the quality of our food. There's a lot of interest in the global community we have found. So that you know, during the first quarter of 2024, from January to March, we have exported about $1 billion farm products and wine. It doesn't include the fish. When we talk about the fish and seafood, that's over on top of that, $271 million we have exported. So people like it, and of course we are continue to work, spread the message. How we do it so that people know it. For example, I give you a couple of examples. In Korea, our local team worked with the Cherry Association of BC or Blueberry Council of BC. So those 2 associations, so they worked with them that we want to promote cherry and blueberry in Korea. And so they arranged in South Korea what they call a pop-up shop. So there was a shop, and they advertised about that. They brought media in and all that. So 1,000 people visited that shop when they went there, and a lot of media interest. So this is one way we do it. Secondly, last year we had Global Buyers Mission in BC, for example. We bring people from outside who have interest in our products. So like, for example, from Vietnam, our trade officer brought people here who were interested in to buy blueberry, for example. So we set up the meeting with all the good blueberry producers. They were taken there, they saw it, they talked to them, and they had agreement with them. Now we have blueberry going to Vietnam to begin with. So that's how we help people to connect and all that kind of stuff. So food industry has a huge potential moving forward because we have a high quality food in BC.
And thank you for investing in Nanak Foods in Campbell Heights, expanding their food manufacturing facility, and they are also participating in the global economy too.
That's the Manufacturing Job Fund.
Absolutely, you're creating jobs right here in Surrey. My last question to you is, you mentioned ESG, environmental social governance. It's this broad-based term that many small and medium-sized businesses just can't wrap their head around. I'm just wanting you to know, or asking you, that people are asking me, what standards need to be considered? So there's an ESG Center of Excellence. We're participating in the global economy. But tell us about, the whole ESG lens.
Yeah, as I said earlier, trade is going through different evolution. As I said earlier, there was time when the low price, the bottom line was the issue. It's still issue in some areas. Then it became quality, the ultimate product. But now they want to see the source of product, like from where the product is coming, where the product is produced. There are a lot of consumers who are now very conscious about climate change. There are a lot of people who are very conscious about social responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we call it now ESG standards. whether the corporation or business that produces that product that may be the best product, but they also want to see how that product was produced. So are they environmentally responsible? Did they do everything possible to keep the emissions low or zero if possible? Are they using electric truck or are they using the gas truck, for example, right? The second thing is socially, that are they doing, meeting their social responsibility? For example, our country, we still see the child labor, producing product. Product may be the best product, but children working there, and there's no minimum pay standard and all that kind of stuff, right? And do they have inclusive policies as well, so that everybody can work in that situation? So that's the social piece. And then the governance is, do they have policies in place to deal with different challenges? If there's a conflict, whatever the issue, do they have that? So that's the standard right now. That's the standard emerging in the market right now. So that's why what we have done, we have opened what we call the first province ESG Center for Excellence. We have an advisory council. There are 7 people in that advisory council. They are kind of, at this point in time, whatever the know-how we have, they have, of course, the best possible knowledge about this area. So they are guiding us to guide businesses to go through their ESG journey. So if you contact us, we will have somebody who will provide one-to-one services and advise you how to go through this journey, what our ESG means, how you can meet it, what are the things you can change at your production and all that kind of stuff.
Minister, that's all the time we have for questions, but any closing comments?
Well, I just want to say thanks to all of these people for coming today, and we want to go global. We want to change the way we do trade internationally. As I said to you earlier, we have huge potential in this province, because if you look at even this room, we have very diverse population. We have a lot of connections politically, with business-to-business connections, people-to-people connections. We are prepared to give you any help you need, but we want more and more people participating in export activity. When you do that, by the way, you create good jobs for the people here, you improve the economy of this province, and you actually participate and make this province a better place for everyone. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Minister. And I can say, after knowing him for 3 decades, that he is committed to Surrey. And we're so pleased to have a minister right here in our city on the global trade file. So everyone, we're just going to take a break for 2 minutes while we reset the stage for the next program components. And so get some coffee, get some breakfast, and thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great.
All right, everyone, just a reminder to turn off your cell phones to avoid any interruptions in the program. I now invite Kevin Elliott, Trade Policy and Outreach Trade and from the Outreach Trade and Industry Development Division of the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, to facilitate the next session of our program. Please, a round of applause for Kevin Elliott.
Thank you, Anita. I'll take the round of applause any opportunity I can get. It's a pleasure to be here, of course, in Surrey, and to be here alongside the Minister and, of course, the Board of Trade. What we kind of envisioned with a bit of a workshop series of this panel discussion was to build off some of the comments that the Minister had about what the province is doing to increase the provincial trading footprint, and to address what we've kind of developed in our experience, what is a bit of a gap between the programs and the services that are available and the awareness that exists across the province to take advantage of them. So, generally our position is we know that the utilization of free trade agreements brings tremendous benefit. We see this to individual firm performance, to overall economic development, to overall increasing welfare in a particular region. But what we want to do is we want to be able to kind of share that knowledge about these programs so that then we can encourage BC-based companies to take advantage of the slew of free trade agreements that we've participated in and helped to kind of facilitate in concert with the federal Canadian government. And to encourage, especially those groups and those businesses that have been traditionally underrepresented in trade, to take advantage of these free trade agreements, because as the minister was saying, there's tremendous benefit that's there, and we could leave a lot of money on the table. So for us at the ministry, we've equally been doing a bit of a roadshow, maybe not as glamorous as the one that the Surrey Board of Trade has been doing, but we've been covering the province in a way, trying to establish three principal goals. The first is to share what we are learning from our federal counterparts and what we've worked to establish with them in terms of expanding the footprint of free trade access. The second is to learn from BC-based businesses about what some of the barriers that exist for them, or how exactly they are taking advantage or not taking advantage of free trade agreements. And the third is really to try and make this connection between the programs and services that are available and the resources that we have at the provincial side and BC-based businesses. So our panel here is in service and hopefully working towards making one incremental step, I think, to help bridge this perceived gap. And so we'll go in the order as described. So we have to my left Janelle Quarian, who's the director at our Trade Policy and Outreach at the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation. To her left is Carly Sawyer, manager of export services within the same ministry. And to her left, Linda Adamora, the Export Navigator here in the Lower Mainland. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to Janelle, who will give us an overview of BC's trade footprint and some of the opportunities available.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Ooh, that sounds good. I'm going to start off with some, let's see here, some key figures on British Columbia's international trade performance. In 2023, our international commodity exports reached a total of $57 billion. Our most recent data for our international services trade is from 2021, when BC's exports were $22.5 billion. I'd say one comment on services statistics, they're not very reliable, unfortunately. They're quite underrepresented, underreported, so that number's much lower than we would expect in reality. The province's top commodity exports are mining, energy, forestry, agri-food and seafood, and manufacturing. And it's quite a pleasure to hear how strong the manufacturing sector is here in Surrey, and I'll try and hit on that a little bit more in my presentation on what that means for trade agreements. And services sectors include travel, commercial activities, and transportation. BC's primary export destinations, as the minister mentioned, show a very diverse range of markets. These include the US, China, Japan, South Korea, the EU, India, Taiwan, Australia, and the UK. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of information on BC's interprovincial trade. So if we look at trade within Canada, in BC, we see how important this market is for BC businesses. We do hear that in some cases it is a good strategy for a business to trade within Canada first before considering going international. So we like to spend a bit of time explaining how our domestic trade agreements work as well as how our international trade agreements work. One of the big differences between them, of course, would be that domestic trade agreements don't deal with tariffs. That's in Canada, it's the federal government who negotiates and leads on international trade agreements. With domestic trade agreements, the provinces are there at the table as a full member along with the federal government. Of course, we represent the province here, but we work very closely with the federal government on trade negotiations. For example, my colleague Kevin is just back from Ottawa, where he had a technical briefing on all of the work that's going on in Ottawa, and we are all on an ongoing basis in regular contact with them. So in 2022, our province exported $17 billion worth of goods to other provinces. Exports to the rest of Canada were almost a third of our exports to all other countries combined. Even more impressive are our services exports to the rest of Canada, which totaled $30 billion. This is greater than all of our international markets combined. Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec emerge as our top destinations. So So BC's trade priorities, our focus is multifaceted and forward-thinking. Our priority, as Minister mentioned, is to encourage trade diversification, to attract investment and enhance market access for BC's exports. We're also aware of the need for strong and secure supply chains, which we know can be disrupted by events beyond our control. We work to ensure BC's interests are protected and advanced in trade negotiations and disputes, and these priorities form the backbone of our goal of driving and securing economic growth. So what are our internal trade agreements? BC has been Canada's leading advocate for a strong, competitive domestic economy, and we've driven this vision through two important trade agreements that facilitate trade, investment, and labour mobility in Canada. We're really proud of these agreements, especially the newest partnership trade agreement. The predecessor to that was called the TILMA, and it was an agreement just between BC and Alberta. And over time, that's been expanded and broadened, and now it includes the 4 provinces of the 4 Western Canadian provinces. And we've also worked together with them to push a national agenda from time to time and to encourage more work to be done on the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which includes all of the provinces and territories and the federal government. Both of these agreements are comprehensive. They apply to trade, investment, and labor mobility in every sector of the economy. They're based on a negative listing approach, and that means that all government measures across the country are covered unless identified as an exception. Both agreements cover the various actions of provincial governments, their crown agencies, and the broader MASH sector. A novel part of these agreements is a focus on identifying and removing regulatory barriers to interprovincial trade. No other agreement does this. Under the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, BC has recently proposed and now chairs a national initiative under which any good or service can be legally sold or used in one province would be free to be sold or used in all others without facing further regulatory hurdles. And with the removal of duplicative regulatory requirements, businesses in Canada will find it much easier to sell their goods and services across Canada. No other federation, including the US or the EU, will have achieved this. And if successful, BC and Canada should become recognized world leader in establishing an open and competitive domestic market. Conversely, businesses of our key competitors will continue to face regulatory and other domestic barriers between their states or provinces. And we believe investors will take note of British Columbia's and Canada's leadership, and this would bode well for our productivity, which has been hampered by unnecessary regulatory costs. It is a drag on our productivity in a lot of ways. There's a lot of reports and studies out there that will explain that. Our colleagues work really hard to try and remove these barriers within Canada. So I just strongly encourage you, if you are aware of any barriers that are impacting your business within Canada, please let us know. Because again, on my team, there are people that are working really hard on the domestic trade issues as well as the international trade issues. I'll move on to international trade agreements. So let's look at the scale of Canada's international free trade agreements. As the Minister mentioned, these FTAs cover more than 50 foreign markets and 1.5 billion consumers worldwide. And that's a massive market potential for BC's goods and services. The agreements provide priority, duty-free access to global markets that allows BC's exporters to compete on a level playing field. In addition to reduced tariffs, these agreements also reduce barriers found in other areas, cross-border, border crossing requirements, government procurement, government measures that potentially favor local businesses at the expense of ours. For BC businesses, these international agreements have opened up new markets for our products and services. Whether it's forestry, tech, or tourism, there are export opportunities across all sectors. With these agreements, Canada enjoys key advantages, such as, for example, over the US in having an agreement with the European Union. Canada is party to the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement on Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I will get into more detail later because I don't have time to get into details on all of these agreements, so we've just selected one to elaborate on for you. which is the CPTPP, but we also have a really good agreement with the European Union, and we have an agreement with South Korea. We have a new modernized agreement with Ukraine. It's interesting, so these agreements, a lot of them are very similar, but it's sort of like a same but different. So one of the things I wanted to make sure to mention in my presentation is a little bit of a practical advice for you. Because we've heard some companies are not aware of how trade agreements work, how the fact that preferential treatment, such as reduced tariffs, are not an automatic. So in order to be able to take advantage of what I'll get into some of the preferences, in order to be able to take advantage of that, it has to be claimed, and you have to fill out a certificate of origin, and you have to explain how your product is Canadian. And as you can imagine, if we think about food processing in particular or manufacturing, there potentially could be a lot of different ingredients in a product. And so it's very important to know or to determine that your product is Canadian and to apply for that preference. Now, if for some reason that hasn't been done, it's okay. You have up to 3 years to apply to have that money refunded. And of course, that would be import tariffs, that would be duties applied to your products when they're imported into another country. So your customers have likely paid that. And so it's important that you're aware of that as a business owner, because as I said, we've noticed that in a lot of cases, these trade agreements aren't being used, and we're not sure quite why. And so it's important to raise awareness and get the word out there to be mindful of these opportunities. And we would be more than happy to help explain that in more detail. It's called rules of origin. And in fact, it's probably the bulk of where the trade agreement negotiations happen. Okay. Moving on to the significance of the Indo-Pacific region and why British Columbia has a compelling interest to engage in this dynamic part of the world. The Indo-Pacific region is comprised of 40 countries with over 4 billion people. It stands as a global economic powerhouse with a staggering 47 trillion in economic activity. By 2040, the region is projected to contribute 50% of the world's GDP and be home to 65% of the global population. Canada is a Pacific nation, and this is evident through BC with strong historical, cultural, and people-to-people ties to the Indo-Pacific region. BC is Canada's gateway to the Pacific. Not only does BC host 2 of Canada's largest ports, it's also the country's largest exporting province to the region. The Indo-Pacific is BC's second largest regional export market destination. Last year, 7 of BC's top export destinations were in the Indo-Pacific. Those are China, Japan, South Korea, India, Taiwan, Australia, and the Philippines. BC exported roughly $20 billion worth of goods to these markets, and that's more than 1/3 of our international commodity exports. So the changing trade patterns, what's happening? Trade patterns are changing. We hear talk about reducing trade risks. Risks are driven by geopolitical tensions, rapid technological advancements, and other factors. We're seeing shifts in trade partnerships, both Canada and British Columbia exploring new markets beyond our traditional ones. And this diversification is key to being resilient in a volatile global economy. So how do we adapt for growth? It's about finding and seizing opportunities, and some of these opportunities are presented in our free trade agreements. As part of our diversification efforts, Canada is currently negotiating new trade agreements, one with the ASEAN, which includes 10 nations in Southeast Asia, and another with Indonesia. We're also negotiating with Ecuador. And so again, if you have any interest in those markets, and if you're aware of any particular barriers or concerns or tariffs, please do let us know, and negotiation is an opportune time for us to try and have these things addressed. So BC's trade diversification strategy. To adapt to the changing trade patterns and address evolving trade interests, Canada has revealed its Indo-Pacific strategy. And as Minister Brar mentioned, BC also introduced its own trade diversification strategy last year. The trade diversification strategy has several goals, and it aims at mitigating trade risks by diversifying our export destinations and supply chain markets. It focuses on creating new export opportunities for businesses, and it seeks to build a robust and resilient economy that can weather the storms of global trade. In essence, the trade diversification strategy is about securing our economic future through smart strategic initiatives. Vietnam, Taiwan, and Mexico have been identified as important emerging markets for expanding BC's exports. These markets were not part of our traditional top export destinations, but present enormous potential and opportunities for growth and expansion. And I should add that BC's strategy was informed by feedback from various stakeholders, including BC businesses and industry groups. So I mentioned I wanted to expand on one of our trade agreements, and that is the CPTPP. So we have a multitude of free trade agreements. These agreements share many provisions, such as requirements on non-discrimination, transparency, and the avoidance of disguised barriers to trade. When I talk about the CPTPP, it's a unique agreement. It involves 11 countries, and it has also an accession provision which allows other countries to join over time. The UK is currently is the first to actually succeed in joining, and it's forming a substantial trading bloc with 580 million consumers and 15.6% of global GDP. The agreement offers comprehensive coverage and various aspects of trade and economic collaboration. The CPTPP is actually 30 chapters. I think it's 30 chapters, 7,000 pages of text. It has a whole bunch of side letters and annexes, and it's a really good example of why we're here today, to explain these a bit to you so that you're aware, because it is not the kind of thing that you can just pick up and read. It's very, the CPTPP in particular, because it involves so many countries, it's almost like a series of bilateral agreements all bundled under one umbrella. The CPTPP provides opportunities for exporting BC goods and services, attracts investment, and opens up government procurement. Trade barriers, both in terms of tariffs and non-tariff barriers, are significantly eliminated or reduced. It provides trade and investment opportunities across all sectors in the province, and it enhances access to these markets and the overall business environment within them. How BC commodity exports benefit from tariff eliminations. So once fully implemented, the CPTPP wipes out 99% of tariffs. That's a significant reduction, opening up doors for BC's exporters. Right from the start, more than 31% of imports became duty-free. Take Vietnam, for example. Nearly 83% of their fish and seafood tariffs were removed, including an 18% tariff on our prized BC salmon and halibut. And over the next 15 years, more than 67% of tariff lines will become duty-free, with some already eliminated. Malaysia is set to scrap tariffs of up to 40% on our BC plywood by November 2027. As non-members will continue to pay the tariffs, tariff reductions in CPTPP countries represent a significant boost for our wood products and many other sectors. And here's another example. Japan is committed to remove the 15% tariff on sparkling wine by April 2025. And that's great news for our wine producers. These tariff eliminations signal potential future opportunities that we would like all of our businesses to be aware of. So what do FTAs mean for BC services exporters? I've talked a bit about tariffs. Obviously, those apply to goods. Non-tariff barriers. A non-tariff barrier, an example of a non-tariff barrier would be licensing, certification requirements, anything needed to protect the health and safety of the product. Those are all non-tariff barriers, and we seek to remove those as much as we can with trade agreements. That said, every government always has the right to maintain these measures. In fact, they're very critical and important in order to protect the environment, people. And so the issue is that sometimes these non-tariff barriers sometimes they're put in place to protect local industry. Sometimes they're put in place just because over time there's some sort of regulatory difference that's been there. So that's our effort, is to try and remove those non-tariff barriers. But for services exporters, it's a little bit different. So there are market opportunities for our service sectors such as travel, construction, engineering, and education. Our service providers under trade agreements will receive treatment that is as favorable as that enjoyed by locals in their own markets. They will allow our businesses to establish a commercial presence in other countries, and often the ability for our key employees to work there on a temporary basis. In short, agreements such as the CPTPP expand our services sector's reach and competitiveness, enhancing our economic ties with trading partners. Another area of interest to BC suppliers is domestic and international government procurement opportunities. Governments worldwide are among the largest buyers of goods, services, and construction, and the right to bid on domestic and international government procurement presents a significant opportunity for BC suppliers. Under these agreements, BC suppliers enjoy open, non-discriminatory access and have a bid dispute resolution mechanism to enforce these rights. It's important to note that government procurement commitments differ by agreement and on the level of government and the sectors involved. Just like all of these agreements, what the benefits are specifically for your business very much depends on what good you provide and what service you provide and what market you're interested in. Similarly with government procurement, it very much depends on the actual details of the trade agreement on what procurement opportunities there are. Some countries are very open on their procurement policies. I would use the European Union as an example of that. They have a very open procurement market with a lot of opportunities for any business, but specifically for us, because we have a great trade agreement with the European Union. I can't help myself. I have to go into that. So another key feature of trade agreements that's a benefit to services, primarily to services suppliers, but it's also a benefit if you're a goods producer and you also need to go in market to perhaps show how a good can be used and perhaps go and repair it. And the risk of overloading you with too much detail is just one of the other advantages of trade agreements. It's for the certain individuals to work in other countries and vice versa. It's called cross-border mobility. It makes it easier for business people to explore new export opportunities and to invest in foreign markets. One of the categories is as an investor, so you could go into to a market for a period of time. Investors and skilled professionals from these partner countries have opportunities to locate in BC, and by facilitating the movement of businesses and intra-corporate transfers, FTAs boost innovation and technology transfer between BC's industry and those of the trading partner countries. Greater mobility also strengthens the economic ties between BC and countries in the Indo-Pacific and other regions. An example, BC was the architect of full labor mobility in Canada. All provinces and territories now recognize the credentials of regulated occupations as equal to their own and must grant licensure when requested. We have a similar kind of initiative with the European Union, where we have the architects have negotiated an agreement where an architect licensed in Canada can work throughout the European Union and vice versa. It's another aspect of trade agreements that we work on over time, is to negotiate mutual recognition agreements to go even further in terms of removing trade barriers. A little bit of a resource available to you here as a tool that I like to explain, which is Canada's Tariff Finder. So what's neat about this is you can put in here your HS code if you know it. That's really important to have. Otherwise, you could describe your product. You can go in and you can put which country you're interested in. You can put whether you're exporting or importing, and it will tell you what your what the tariff rate is under those agreements. It will also tell you what the tariff rate is under the WTO, World Trade Organization, which is the baseline level of preferential trade, which is where we start from. And when we negotiate these bilateral agreements, we try to go even more preferential trade so that we might get down to zero duty free. But it's neat on this website is that it'll show you that. Another thing I like to explain is if you're interested in the European Union, they have an even more interesting website, really, because they will also have, if you put in your information, they will also show you what regulations apply, what directives apply to your products. So that's a very handy thing to have. And I guess finally, I would like to do one more pitch for my team and the work that we do, and the fact that if there are any trade barriers that your business is experiencing, it's so helpful for us to know about those things, because we are not the traders, we are not out there doing the work that you are, and we are not aware of those issues unless you let us know. And we have a lot of opportunities to address those issues. We will work with our colleagues, whether it be the colleagues you're going to be hearing from now, or also we work with, like I said, the federal government very closely, and we can become an advocate for you and work very closely with you in order to get market access. And I also will be here for questions afterward. I really look forward to talking with you, because I can't reiterate enough that these trade agreements cover every aspect of the economy. Surely there's something in it for you, but I won't really know exactly what in detail to explain to you unless I know what business you're in, what good you produce, what service you provide, and what market you're interested in. Thank you very much.
Carly Sawyer, Manager, Export Services, please.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Carly Sawyer, and I'm an Export Services Manager with JEDI. I primarily work with newer exporters and our trade readiness programs. So I'm here today to discuss exporting, how it can benefit your business, and the different resources that are available to assist your business. Minister Brar already gave a very lovely in-depth overview of our ministry, so I'll just lightly touch on a few different things. So JEDI is a ministry that delivers services that build an inclusive and sustainable economy that benefits all British Columbians. So our ministry has the mandate to accomplish clean and inclusive growth, and we do that through supporting business startup and growth, and through supporting emerging opportunities in many sectors. The ministry also promotes trade and investment and has specific teams that are dedicated to the development of each of those. So we support First Nations and Indigenous peoples, small businesses, and communities across all regions of the province with economic development activities such as the one we're doing here today, as well as economic diversification, job creation, and strategic investments to ensure that everybody in BC benefits from economic growth. So as part of the JEDI Export Services team, it is my job and my colleagues' job to help support businesses like yours expand internationally. We are here to increase the number and the value of international exports, so it's essentially our job to help you succeed on a global scale. So just to give you a bit of a breakdown of what our team looks like, we are separated into two teams spanning both natural resources and technology. We have specific folks dedicated to the economic or export development of our clients in each of these sectors. And we have relationships with industry associations and organizations for each of these sectors as well. So on the natural resources side, we primarily cover agri-food and agri-tech, forestry and wood products, energy, mining, and natural gas, as well as some consumer products. And on the technology side, we cover aerospace, clean tech, life sciences, marine and ocean, as well as manufacturing, ICT, and digital media and entertainment, among others. So, before I delve into this slide, I already had a chance to speak with a few of you before we began today, but just by show of hands, could I see how many of you are not currently exporting? Okay, and are you guys interested in learning about exporting on an international scale? All right, and how many of you are already exporting? Okay, great. A nice mix today. So I won't spend too much time on this slide because you are here and you probably already know what exporting is and most of the benefits, but I will just spend a little bit of time here. So there are a few different types of export that you can consider. Janelle has touched on some already. Of course, you can consider expanding within Canada first by exporting interprovincially. And many companies do choose to begin with that and establish themselves within Canada before expanding internationally. But with the supports that are available in the province, we also have many businesses begin right away with international expansion with the supports available. And we'll chat more about those supports very soon. So I just want to reiterate that it's very necessary for our ministry, for JEDI, to support businesses like yours with international expansion because it leads to economic benefits, not only for your businesses, but for people and their livelihood throughout the province. So why should you consider exporting as a growth strategy for your business? Exporting to a new international market can provide several benefits to your company. The first being expanding your customer base by accessing new markets. So by accessing new markets, this will translate into increased profits and sales. Just a brief example, BC's population is somewhere around the 5 million mark. And if you were just to export down the I-5 corridor into Washington, Oregon, and California, your customer base would then increase to over 10 times to somewhere over 50 million. You can also reduce your vulnerability and risks. So by exporting to another market outside of your domestic market, if situations were to become unfavorable here, you'd have less of a likelihood of being negatively impacted if you're selling to another market. And thus, by selling to additional markets or numerous markets, you can further reduce and spread your risk. And lastly, you can also increase your competitiveness. So naturally, by selling to international markets, you will encounter new competitors, and that can force you to adapt and become more competitive, and that will force you to become more competitive across all of your markets. Okay, so some considerations before getting started. First, you need to ask yourself a few questions. The first being, do you have an exportable product or service? And if so, have you thought about your target market and have you identified a market opportunity? So doing market research is one of the most powerful tools that you can utilize when you are expanding internationally. Understanding the business culture, local preferences, regulations, etc., and knowing where your product might or service might succeed the most. So for example, BC Seafood sells very well in South Korea because they have a high preference for premium, sustainably sourced seafood. The Netherlands, on the other hand, they are a very successful market for maple products. So there's so much information that you can find online, but our teams can also help you to do some of this market research, provide some of that intelligence for you to help find whatever market might be best suited for your product or your services. Next, you need to consider what your competitive advantage might be. So what about your product or service makes it stand out? What about it is unique? And what about it makes it competitive on a global scale, especially compared to other products or competitors that you might run into internationally? What makes your product better than theirs at the price that you'll be offering it for? And next, you need to think about human and financial resources, of course. So do you have the human capacity, the financial capacity to meet the production scales required for expanding? So if you, for example, if you run into someone in an international market and they want to place an order now for 4 40-foot containers or for 5,000 units of your product, would you have the financial resources and the human resources to meet that demand in a decent time limit? Because these sales, I think a lot of people don't understand how quickly these things can happen. Of course, some things take years when it comes to exporting, but there's a lot of people out there who want these items now, so you have to be ready to place those orders. Next is legal resources. So do you have someone that you can consult with on the legal requirements, taxes, and regulations for your primary or target market? Next is product modification. So is there anything that you need to modify about your product, whether it be the product itself, the ingredients, the labeling, any sort of packaging that suits the business, or sorry, the cultural needs or preferences for where you are looking to sell? So all of these elements would feed into your export plan, and I'll chat a little bit more about that in the following slides, but we do have some partners who can help you develop an export plan to enter a new target market. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend taking the quiz that I have linked here today. You can find it on the Trade Commissioner website. It's a very in-depth quiz to help you analyze just how ready you are to begin exporting. So next I'm going to chat about 3 of the different export programs that we have available in BC. First on the list is Export Navigator, which I will not be going into detail on because we have Linda here today, very luckily, who will share more about her fantastic program. But I will just say that that is intended to be kind of the first point of contact for newer BC exporters. But yes, I'll allow her to elaborate on that. Next we have, as Minister Brar mentioned, the Trade Accelerator Program, or TAP. And this is a fantastic 6-week program that is free to all BC businesses. It comprised of 2 in-person days of workshops, followed by 3 virtual days. And it takes place over the 6 weeks. And they deliver a bunch of workshop activities. They bring in a bunch of different export experts, so lawyers, accountants, folks like us to talk about our programs, etc. And they help you create a defined, comprehensive export plan for a target market, in addition to helping you kind of do some activities to determine what market might be best for you. They give you about a month to produce your export plan, and then following that, we have 2 mentorship days with a bunch of different experts, so both federal, provincial, industry organizations, etc., to provide feedback on that export plan. So typically, on average, TAP graduates see an increase of 23% in their export revenues, and they also see a 48% increase in their hiring capacity within 6 months of completing the program. So there are 5 cohorts with TAP each year, and each of those have a different kind of regional or sector theme for them. However, they will try and squeeze you in if you're interested wherever they might. So there's already been 3 that have taken place so far this year, but we still have to go through the Creative Industries one, which is coming up in October, I believe, and that's followed by one for Vancouver Island in November. The 3 that have previously happened already this year are Greater Vancouver, the BC Interior, as well as women-led businesses. There are no requirements that you have to be exporting to take part in the program. It is intended for people who are a little bit more familiar with exporting. However, there are some other requirements. So you do have to be a registered BC business for at least 2 years and have a revenue of approximately $300,000, although that is quite flexible if they see that there is a lot of potential for your growth. And you do have to have the internal capacity and resources to begin exporting. And lastly, we have Jedi Export Services, so that's my team. And at JEDI, we work with export-ready businesses and those who are already exporting. We offer many services that I will delve into in further detail in the following slides, but primarily we provide access to our international network that Minister Brar was mentioning. And yeah, I think we'll just delve into that. So primarily, the services that we provide are one-on-one advice and coaching for export-ready businesses. We provide market entry assistance into international markets through our international network. We provide business matchmaking by matching buyers and sellers in both local and foreign markets. And we provide access to domestic and international trade shows, inbound and outbound missions, and other trade events that happen around the globe. So ultimately, our team is here to help you make trade deals internationally. So this map shows the 23 cities around the world where we currently have international representation. So we have trade and investment representatives, or TIRs, located at each of these offices. We currently have four offices, I should say, in the United States, covering Seattle, Los Angeles, Boston, and San Francisco. We also have 4 offices in India, and in Japan, we are co-located with our federal counterparts in Tokyo. And likewise in China, we have 4 co-locations with our federal counterparts in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Chongqing. In Europe, we have an office in London, but we also have trade reps in the Netherlands and Germany. And for the ASEAN market, we have offices in Singapore, Jakarta, Manila, and Ho Chi Minh City. And finishing off, as Minister Brar mentioned, we have a new office that has recently opened in Taipei, and we are currently working on establishing operations in Mexico City. So our trade reps in these markets are available for one-on-one support with JEDI clients, BC businesses, and they support your entry into their markets by connecting you to anybody that you might possibly need to know on the ground. So distributors, buyers, sellers, any other kind of partner that you can imagine, they know those people and they will connect you to them. They also participate with BC businesses at trade shows in their markets, and they help to support you at those shows. So they're there to make connections, help establish meetings, and create as many possible networking opportunities for you while you are there. They also help to foster bilateral relationships with those regions, and they help to facilitate investments from those regions into BC. I should note, wherever we don't have a presence, we often refer BC businesses to the Trade Commissioner Service, who provides a similar service on a federal scale. So who benefits the most from our services? As I mentioned, we provide service to export-ready BC businesses who are looking to take their product to the global market. And prior to connecting a company with our international network, we'll kind of make sure that you had everything I had listed in the consideration slide. So do you have a defined market or target market opportunity, the human and financial resources, et cetera? Have you done the research? So have you looked at local market considerations, business culture, tax requirements, et cetera, for your target market? I will say that clients that have completed the TAP program or worked with Export Navigator typically become ideal clients because they've already addressed many of these pieces. So this is a list that's definitely not a complete list of some of the events where we have supported BC businesses or will be supporting them in 2024. For domestic events, we recruit foreign buyers and investors into BC to showcase BC's offerings and match them with BC businesses during their visit. And for international events, we recruit a delegation of BC businesses to go to that market where the show is. And we often partner with our federal counterparts and offer B2B matchmaking and networking opportunities and other side programming events while we are in market. So the type and level of support that we offer does vary by show. Just as a brief example, for our Natural Products Expo West show that happened in Anaheim earlier this year, if you were to get your own booth, it would cost you between $10,000 to $20,000, usually closer to 20. But if you were to join the BC booth, you'd be looking at a $500 to $750 registration fee. It can be quite competitive to become part of a BC delegation for some of the shows, depending on the sector. But we try and help as many businesses as possible, take as many with us. And those who aren't able to join us in our physical booth, we still try and get as many passes to the show as possible to provide to those who are who would be able to come and walk the show and not necessarily have a booth. And even if that is the case, we still try and connect every BC business who is attending the show in any capacity with the same sort of networking opportunities and connection opportunities that we would provide those who officially come with us. So yeah, if you are interested or planning to travel to an international event, I'd highly recommend checking in with us to see if there's any way that we can support you while you are there. So thank you very much to everyone for being here today. If you have any questions about our services or the programs or what might be the best fit for you, please feel free to reach out to me. I will also be around for the Q&A and the networking afterwards, and we'll have business cards, so don't worry if you can't catch this. Thank you all. And I'm now happy, oh, never mind, Kevin's going to do it.
Go ahead.
I'm now happy to introduce Linda Adamora from the Export Navigator Program.
Thank you so much, Carly. It's a pleasure to be making this presentation on behalf of the Export Navigator Program. My name is Linda Adamora once again, and I am an export advisor for the Maple Ridge regions all across into Agassiz, so mostly covering that Fraser Valley region. So to get us started, we'll start off with a bit of an agenda. Why export? Who exports? How to export? I'll dive into a little bit of a success story, and then we will go in a bit deeper into the Export Navigator program. So, why export? Expanding sales outside of the domestic market makes businesses more sustainable in the long run. I know we've heard a few statistics around exports in BC generally, but I just wanted to highlight that out of 98% businesses that identify as small businesses, only 1.3% of them export internationally. And I think that's a reflection of how businesses do see those challenges that exist, be it cost, time and energy, or competition. Just to highlight on some of the key opportunities that exist: market diversity, economies of scale, and innovations. Being able to tap into another pool of talent, even at an international level, opens up businesses to opportunities that they wouldn't naturally have if they would have stayed locally. Moving on to who exports. So in our program, we identify exports as doing business beyond the borders of BC, and we cover everything from hard manufactured goods all the way to service providers. So I know a common question when it comes to exports is usually for the service-based businesses, if they would be supported in a program like Export Navigator. So moving on to the next slide. With the help of the program, once again, we go through an assessment. So this assessment happens at a personal and business and product and service level. We want to see if you're ready to export, and with the help of your advisor, we determine that readiness, And a lot of it has to do with the mindset. There are a lot of barriers that exist naturally. Do you have that growth mindset? Do you have the time and energy? And ultimately, do you have the funds to expand? So typically, you would need to be able to devote at least one staff member to pioneering your exporting, be it figuring out your market research, or even being able to attend some of those in-market opportunities that exist. So this is just a very brief intro into how to export. So in our program, we have identified these 4 crucial stages of exporting. And it starts off with the first stage, which has to do with awareness and pretty much coming up with your exporting strategy. And then at the second stage, it's the planning stage. You want to identify your key markets. And then the third stage is the market entry stage. And at this stage, you want to be attending trade shows. You want to be in market to really see how you can differentiate yourself. And then ultimately, the fourth stage has to do with the growth and market development. So you want to keep exploring how you can differentiate yourself within the target market. You want to revise your exporting plan and make sure you're troubleshooting any potential challenges that exist. So I just wanted to speak to this market identification slide that we have here. So it's really crucial to use maybe 3 or 5 specific factors to determine your market entry. So you want to figure out which free trade agreements exist. I know there was a question that was asked earlier on about maybe why there aren't specific agreements between BC and other areas, but a lot of it is also politically driven, given that a lot of these free trade agreements work at a government level, for example, with procurement. So you want to explore, some of those factors behind political stability, cultural and language factors, the actual costs that exist with exporting, and even some of the legal framework that governs exports within that market. So where can you find key contacts to help you with your exporting journey? So obviously there's social media platforms, there's specific industry trade shows that you can attend. Word of mouth referrals are also key. There's also industry trade associations, there are provincial and federal government offices in foreign markets, and ultimately the Export Navigator Program really works as an anchoring program that helps you to navigate all of these key contacts that I have spoken to. So this is a key slide, especially for businesses that would be in the agri-food space. You want to make sure that transportation and logistics considerations are really taken to a greater extent in terms of just making sure that your product arrives at the country of destination with the expected quality, and you want to make sure that you understand the Incoterms that govern your agreement, and ultimately how we support our agri-food clients in the program is to partner them with our key contacts who can really support with some of these pieces that are ultimately crucial to ensuring that you make it into your target market. So I just wanted to share a success story. I know there's a few tech companies in here that I've already spoken to, but just wanted to share a company, their local business called TLC Solutions, and they reached out to us with an interest in growing their market specifically in California. And we were able to put them in touch with a key contact in the US who ultimately opened up specific target contacts that they needed in the food and beverage industry within that California region. And they were also connected into a key event that they will be participating in at a subsidized level. And at this event, yeah, we're sure that they'll be getting some good traction. So that's just a personal success story from a local region. And now I'll be going into a video success story covered by my colleague. Great. So just to take a deeper dive into the Export Navigator Program. So how does it work, you might be asking? So you are assigned an advisor who works with you on a one-on-one basis, and it's an ongoing basis, and it's pretty much customer driven. So we find that the clients that are able to commit the time required for the meetings and for the advisory service, they do really well, and the ones that are able to implement and act on it. So really this program was founded back in 2016 when a study was done, and it was discovered that BC businesses were not exporting as much as other provinces. And the main reason was because of the lack of support and resources. So the program provides you the right service connections at the right time. I just want to emphasize the right time component, because typically, for example, with grants and other opportunities that come up, people that rightfully should qualify for them don't apply because they simply don't know that they're actually available or open for application. So in the program, we make sure that we're updating you with those sort of opportunities and services, as well as going through an export readiness assessment on a one-on-one basis, as well as working with you with a workbook which ultimately leads to an export plan. So once again, we're really focused on working with our clients on their business strategy and overall growth planning. So these are some of our key metrics. We have helped over 870 businesses. We have had over 3,400 webinar attendees. So this is a key way of how we also support our clients by hosting online webinars. And then we have made over 2,300 referrals to partner organizations, might be recommendations for grants, might be in-market support opportunities. It might be to specific trade-related programs like the TAP. And overly, businesses recognize an over 10% growth in their international sales. So this slide just shows you the resources that are available to you as a small business. So I just want to really highlight the fact that available resources are so crucial to ensuring you that you're saving costs on different ventures. So for example, trade mission opportunities, for example, funded programs. The Can Export is a key exporting grant that was recently opened, and I think it just closed end of last month, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, it's a grant that basically subsidizes some of your costs for market development. And for example, there's specific ways that we can help you with establishing trade leads. We also help with market access, and we're working directly with you on all of those pieces. And there are also some very key grants that are specific to the industries that you might be in. So be it tech or agri-food or manufacturing, there are different grants that exist out there that we would be sharing with you on an ongoing basis. And ultimately, these are some of our key partners that we work with: JEDI, the Global Affairs Canada, EDC, the the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food, as well as Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada. So we actually have specialized services for Indigenous-owned businesses. So we recognize how important it is to have that inclusive support for underrepresented groups in business. So just to share the slide with our export advisors, we actually have 2 Indigenous people's export advisors. So they are there to truly offer that customized support and customized resource. And then ultimately, how can you stay connected to the program? So you can apply to the Export Navigator Program using our website. We also have e-courses, like I mentioned, and these are great sort of foundational courses that you can take to help you with your exporting essentials, as well as getting that access to webinars and signing up to our monthly newsletter, which is a really great resource. And with that, I would like to wrap up my presentation by acknowledging that we're able to offer all the support that we do at no cost to the clients, because we are funded provincially and federally as well. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I will be here, and I look forward to connecting with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda and Carly. Before we conclude, are there any questions for the audience? I know there were a few hands up that were earlier, either for Carly or for Linda. Well, if that's it, then thank you everyone for coming. I think it was a really productive morning. Really appreciate everyone taking the time. I know everyone's got busy schedules, so really appreciate it, and hope you folks all have an excellent rest of your day and weekend, and looking forward to connecting if folks want to stick around and have a cup of coffee and have a quick chat. Thank you so much.